Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out today. Want to welcome back to the program Brian Concannon. He is a human rights lawyer and executive director of the Institute for Justice and Democracy in Haiti. Brian, welcome back to the program.
Well, thanks for having me back again, Sam. And even more importantly, thanks for covering Haiti.
Well, I think the last time we spoke may have been in the wake, and I can't quite recall this, but may have been in the wake of the assassination of Jovenel Moïse. And that was about 2 years ago, maybe 30 months ago now. Just give us a little bit of that history of how Moïse got into office, and just sort of so that we can set the table here for what the U.S. agenda has been. We've talked in the past on this program about the U.S. agenda that has been there for decades, maybe over a century. We've talked about how Haiti had the only independence, war of independence, I guess one could call it, in throwing off the colonial powers in this hemisphere, and one that they literally had to pay France for over 100 years because they had denied France their slaves. But fill us in on the sort of the recent history.
Yeah, Haitians would love to hear your account because they insist that history needs to start with them becoming independent in a world run by countries that got their power through slavery, and how the world could not allow them to succeed. And they would say that exact same dynamic is still in play. I mean, the powerful countries in the world are still the countries that, for the most part, that got their power through slavery, and Haitians continue to be punished. The most recent developments on that. So President Moïse, and I think as we discussed 30 months ago, had overstayed his term. It was violation of the Constitution, but the U.S. supported him, so he stayed. 2 days before he left, he announced that a man named Ariel Henry would be his prime minister, but Henry was never actually installed. Moïse was killed. Everybody agreed that another person, Claude Joseph, who had been prime minister, would continue in that spot. But then a week later, an organization called the Core Group, which is a group of countries, no Haitians included, led by the United States, the Core Group installed Henry as prime minister through a press release. And so since then, for the last 2.5 years, Henry has served as prime minister with no Haitian electoral or civil society or constitutional support, but he has been propped up consistently by the U.S. government, and so he stayed in. Haiti during that time has continued to degrade. The PHTK party, which has basically run Haiti for the last dozen years, has been persistently dismantling the democracy. Parliament hasn't met since 2019. There has not been a single elected official in office in Haiti for over a year. The police force has been politicized. The courts have been politicized. The press has been cowed. And this process has continued inexorably over the last 30 months. What's happened over the last 24 hours.
Let me stop you there for a second. Just what are the mechanisms? I mean, and we should also probably talk about the intent too with the U.S. But what are the mechanisms when they prop up a guy like Henry? Like what are the mechanisms that are used there? Is it just basically? I mean, how does that happen? Like what does that mean? And really, like. Is it just basically within Port-au-Prince, or is it within like 20% of Port-au-Prince? I mean, like, what does it mean for the U.S. To prop up a leader there? And then we should also probably just touch on what is it that they want out of Haiti that it makes it, the effort to prop up a leader is expended.
Yeah, the U.S. has been propping up Henry by sending him money. They've been propping him up by providing international diplomatic support and making sure he gets loans from the International Monetary Fund and other international financial institutions. And they've been propping him up by insisting that Henry be in office and be part of Haiti's solution. And what has happened over the last couple of years, Haitian civil society keeps coming up with alternatives, with broad-based platforms that would move Haiti towards fair elections. The U.S. keeps giving Henry a veto by saying, well, he has to be part of it or we're not going to let it work. And what that does is it completely distorts all of the incentives. Henry, as long as he has U.S. support, he has no incentive to compromise towards fair elections because he could never win fair elections. And by not compromising, he's been able to stay in office for 30 months, which is the longest prime ministerial term in at least 40 years in Haiti. So basically, with no constitutional or popular support, he's Haiti's longest serving prime minister because he got the U.S. support. Another big part of how the U.S. has been supporting him, back in 2021, when there were widespread protests against Henry's rule, he called for an international force basically to prop him up. The U.S. has been trying very hard to make that work ever since. And it hasn't yet happened, but there's currently a proposed and UN Security Council authorized mission led by Kenya that is, the U.S. is still trying to get it to come to Haiti. And the U.S. actually made accepting that force a condition of anybody who wanted to play a role in Haiti's government after Henry resigns.
All right. So as far as what's been going on with this, in fact, Henry was in Kenya. Is that not right? Just 24 hours ago, that's where he was heading back, and he's been out of the country. But the idea is that the U.S. is basically saying, and Kenya and Haiti had no relations, and they'd not
had diplomatic relations until September. No relations at all. Yeah. And
so it was basically the U.S. shopping around for for an African country that so that it would ostensibly be black soldiers in Haiti. One who had I guess a competent enough military that also was interested in U.S. aid. So the U.S. is going around saying, like, we'll pay you to come in and basically be our proxy military in Haiti, so that we won't have, white faces down there with guns telling the Haitians what to do. You will be our military. We will pay you. And there were problems in Kenya with this because there was a lot of Kenyans who were like, we don't want to do this, but the U.S. is coming in with like an offer you can barely refuse.
Yep. And the U.S. first tried to get Canada. Canada refused and said, this is a bad idea. It's not going to work propping up a hated government. They asked CARICOM, the Caribbean countries. They refused. They asked Brazil. Brazil refused. They asked countries in West Africa. They refused. And it was really Kenya, who had no interest in Haiti, but did have interest in hundreds of millions of U.S. dollars, that finally got Kenya to agree. But once they agreed, Kenya sent an exploratory mission to see what was happening. The exploratory mission said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to revise the mission to where it's much less combative. The U.S. said no, wrong answer, and forced them to retake it. Just in the last 2 hours, we've heard another report that Kenya is saying, well, maybe we're not going to do it after all. We don't know if they're just trying to get more money out of the U.S. or they're serious about pulling out. But that's a developing story.